Well, God bless you one and all, and welcome back to the Bishop's Corner. I'll be your host for tonight, and my name is Bishop Dr. Herbert N. Scott, the Chief Prelate of the Liberty Hall Cathedral of Praise right here in the heart of Brooklyn. And certainly tonight, we want to shout out to the man of God himself, who is doing a tremendous job, Philip Reed, who is affectionately known as Dr. Phil. Well, Dr. Phil, we do applaud you, sir, for a job well done. Well, tonight we have a beautiful program for you. We are speaking about what effect would Black Wall Street have on today's society. But before we should get into that, let me just introduce the panel that we do have. We want to thank God for the man of God himself, Bishop Dr. Neville G. Wollaston, all the way from Connecticut. Can we make the man of God feel welcome? Certainly, man of God, good to see you tonight. And you are dressed beautiful. I don't like it. I love it. Amen. Thank you much for coming on. And next, we want to thank God for daughter, Pastor Carmel King Lonk, that is with us. Woman of God, certainly we want to thank God for your expertise and your presence tonight. Amen. Next, we want to thank God for a young, beautiful young lady. I believe it's her first time on the Bishop's Corner. That's my daughter. Hey, Reed Clark. Amara Reed Clark. Woman of God, certainly a pleasure to have you on the Bishop's Corner. I don't know why I'm having difficulty with your first name. I call it all the time, but tonight somehow something is happening. God bless you richly. And I believe that others will be coming on in a few minutes, which we will be introducing them. However, before we should go into that short clip that Dr. Phil does have to show us, we want to shout out to our friends that are going through the earthquake that took place in Turkey and Syria. We just want them to know that, listen, we feel your pain, the heartaches, the difficulties that you are enduring. And we do know that many are the afflictions of the righteous, but sometimes when certain things are happening, all we can do is just lift our faith and believe God and say, like the psalmist, that God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in the time of trouble. Therefore will not we fear. I know that many, many lives has been lost. So let me say this, that we are praying for you and that God will indeed perform a miracle. God bless you. Please stand strong. Now, before we should go into tonight's conversation, I believe that there is like a short clip to be shown to us. So at this time, we'll be asking Dr. Phil just to come forth and do what he does best. Dr. Phil, it's in your hands.
Greenwood, Oklahoma, 1921. The north side of Tulsa was a prosperous community, exclusively black, because Jim Crow laws prohibited Negroes from living in white neighborhoods, where it was said more than 3,000 Ku Klux Klan members resided in the area. At that time, there were countless all-black communities, like Greenwood, scattered throughout the U.S., 60 in Oklahoma Territory alone. Greenwood, however, was the jewel of Negro America. Though white Tulsans called it Middle Africa, Booker T. Washington gave it the name we know it as today, Black Wall Street. And it was the wealthiest black community in America, where black men and women came to pursue the American dream. It boasted black-owned banks, pharmacies, grocery stores, movie theaters, restaurants, churches, newspaper publishing, law offices, a bus company, its own school district, where the average student wore a uniform with a suit and tie, a business college, a hospital with an entire black staff, and an internationally acclaimed surgeon. Black millionaires, which Greenwood was known to have had more millionaires residing there than the entire United States combined. And of the only 2 airports in the state of Oklahoma, one of them was for the half-dozen private airplanes owned by its black oil tycoons. To top it off, the minimum wage and living standard of a resident of Black Wall Street far exceeded that of the average white citizen of Tulsa. But on May 30th, 1921, all that changed. Dick Rowland, a shoeshine boy, entered the elevator in the Drexel building to use one of the only few colored bathrooms in downtown Tulsa. On the top floor, Sarah Page, a 17-year-old, a white elevator operator, began operating the elevator when it lurched, causing Rowland to stumble. He bumped into Sarah, and she screamed. Rowland, knowing what Frederick Douglass had penned as the truth with regards to the treatment of black men in America, to be accused was to be convicted, and to be convicted was to be punished. In this case, punishment, when it came to the accusations of a white woman, meant death, and knowing her scream was a likely death sentence, young Rowland ran away. He was later seized and apprehended with the intent of being lynched. Word of a black man raping a defenseless white girl spread throughout the Tulsa area. Dozens and then hundreds, until a mob of over 2,000 white men gathered at the county courthouse demanding justice. But justice for what? Sarah Page wasn't assaulted. Her clothes weren't ruffled. And though her story wavered during questioning, she ultimately affirmed she was not harmed. Moreover, she refused to sign a statement saying that she had been raped. But don't let the facts get in the way of a false accusation of a black man who needed to be put in his place at the end of a rope. The Tulsa Tribune reported,
"A Negro assaults a white girl.
and later,
To lynch Negro tonight."
with no basis in fact for the allegations of rape, the mob persisted in their demand for justice of a white girl who emphatically stated that no injustice had been done. Walter White of the New York Evening Post wrote,
Chief of Police John A. Gustafson, Sheriff McCullough, Mayor T.D. Evans, and a number of reputable citizens, among them prominent oil operator, all declared the girl had not been molested, that no attempt at criminal assault had been made. Victor F. Barnett, managing editor of the Tribune, stated that his paper had since learned that the original story that the girl's face was scratched and her clothes torn was untrue.
and there you have it, fake news. But the damage had already been done, and the wheels were set in motion. Armed black World War I veterans were among the less than 100 members of the Greenwood community who came to prevent another lynching of a black man, as thousands had been lynched since the generation of Reconstruction. A verbal confrontation led to a shot being fired, triggering what would soon become the most bloody racial conflict in American history. Some 500 members of the white mob were armed and deputized by city officials, and those who didn't own weapons looted stores to obtain guns and ammunition along the way. Thousands of angry white men descended upon Little Africa, as a few white families provided sanctuary to those fleeing from violence. Over the course of 24 hours, the mob looted, murdered, and razed the wealthiest black city in America to the ground. Eyewitness testimony stated a dozen or more planes circled the black area, dropping burning turpentine balls over the city of Greenwood and firing bullets at black residents young and old, gunning them down in the streets. It was the first and only time Americans used planes to attack and kill its own citizens, as it destroyed an entire city. Authorities engaged in a concerted effort to prevent help from arriving until considerable damage was done by cutting off communication requesting help, blocking transportation ways of firefighters and ambulances, and even preventing the Red Cross from coming in earlier to help the injured and terrorized community.
As they passed the city's most traveled street, they held both hands high above their heads, their hats in one hand as a token of their submission to the white man's authority. They will not return to the homes they had on Tuesday afternoon, only the heaps of ashes, the angry white man's reprisal for the wrong inflicted on them by the inferior race. Tulsa Tribune.
Following the massacre, insurance companies refused to compensate the residents, though the city and its officials were found negligent in preventing it. Decades of silence about the terror, violence, and theft passed. There were no convictions for any of the charges related to the murders or violence. Not one white person was ever held responsible for these crimes, though dozens of black men were indicted for inciting a riot. Government and city officials not only failed to invest and rebuild the once thriving Greenwood community, but blocked efforts to do so, and even actively sought to appropriate their land. The crime wasn't acknowledged by the city or the state of Oklahoma for over 70 years, rarely mentioning it in history books, classrooms, or even in private. Most residents grew into middle age, completely unaware of what had taken place. Even a report detailing the history of Tulsa's fire department from 1897 to 2017 made no mention of the massacre. And on that Memorial Day weekend, June 1st, 1921, Greenwood, Oklahoma, was brought to an abrupt end. Black Wall Street was wiped off the map. 300 African Americans murdered, possibly more. Thousands injured. More than 10,000 left homeless. 40 city blocks burned to the ground, and the few homes left were completely looted. The Tulsa Real Estate Exchange estimated property losses amounting to the equivalent of more than $32 million in today's money. Unbeknownst to most, Tulsa's Black Wall Street wasn't the only black town to be ethnically cleansed in America. It wasn't the only city forgotten, nor was it the only black town where no one was ever arrested, prosecuted, or where victims were never compensated. Time has passed, memories have faded, and survivors have died, taking the knowledge of not only how the cities were destroyed, but arguably even more tragic, the knowledge of how these countless all-black towns were built. Can a biblical blueprint be extrapolated from what we found? That is indeed our challenge, to cooperate, coordinate, and collaborate in order to turn our desolate neighborhoods into thriving communities and build them up by utilizing the keys to economic and societal development. Let us rediscover, let us reunite, and let us rebuild a new Black Wall Street.
Amen. Wow. Just by listening to that, it sends chills up your spine. Before we should go forth, we want to thank God for Apostle Willie Talbot that's with us tonight. Can we make him feel welcome? Man of God, certainly a pleasure to have you tonight on the Bishop's Corner. And we're in for a great time. Here we have Black Wall Street. They had their own banks, their own schools, their own theaters, their own hospitals. Oh yeah, more black millionaire in that small region than in the entire United States of America. They had their own airport. It was said that a young teenage black boy assaulted a white girl, although she answered and said nothing like that. Yet, look what happened. 500 armed men, airplanes, killing our own people. And when you work things out, my friend, honestly, they knew that that boy was innocent. But certainly, let me say this, I believe that jealousy played a part in all of this. These Black folks had just come out of slavery, and yet in a small area, not even measuring a mile in length, had more millionaires there than in the entire United States of America. Watching that small clip makes me very, very angry. Bishop Dr. Neville Wollaston, before we should begin, sir, by you watching that clip, how does it make you feel? In a sentence or two.
I'm glad I'm saved, Bishop. I'm glad. I mean, like you said, it's not easy to watch something like that, to see the injustices that's being put on our people for no reason at all. I mean, you know, like yourself, I've been to Africa many times, and one of my trips, we went to the Elmina Castle, the door of no return. And when we were there, the guide said to us, before you go in, make sure, if you're a Christian, your faith in God is strong. That's what he said to us. If you are a Christian, make sure your faith in God is strong. Because what the white man did, he came with a gun in one hand and the Bible in another hand. Go figure. So yeah, it's hard to watch, but it's our history, and I'm glad we're talking about it.
And I'm glad we are talking about it. Pastor Carmel Kinlong, how do you feel by watching that?
Well, good evening to everyone. It's such a pleasure to be on the Bishop's Corner one more time. And when you watch a video like that, especially on a month like this that we're celebrating African American History Month, it just makes you very angry and very agitated to see that, you know, little has changed, that we're still facing these same issues today. You know, just a few weeks ago, we saw the violence that took place. And it seems to be a continuous cycle that it seems like no one is concerned about the lives of African Americans or Black and brown people overall. So it just it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, to say the least.
Yes, it does. It does. But thank God the songwriter declares, oh, yes, he cares. I know he cares. And that's why we have to just look unto him, the author, the finisher of our faith. Okay, Kamara Reed Clark, woman of God, how say you? How do you feel by just watching that short clip?
Well, good night, everybody. And thank you again to our bishop, and thank you to the panel. Good evening. Thank you for having me. I am still angry, still upset, and watching it over again just resonates even more with our anger and a need to speak out, and our need to stand up, our need to, you know, be an example to what we want to see and reflective in our community. Get the good education, get everything, all that we can get, so we can stand out from amongst, you know, everything that has been cast upon us. No matter the resentment, no matter the anger, we just have to focus on what we're going on, what we're doing, what we have to get done as a people.
Well said indeed, daughter, well said indeed. Okay, Apostle Talbot, man of God, how say you?
Blessings, sir. Blessings, Bishop Scott and Bishop Wollaston, all of you great men and women of God. I too concur with everyone that when I viewed this, and I've seen this several times, it does agitate deep within. But the questions arise for me is, what would I have done had I been there? And then I thought about, even with the recent occurrence that you referenced earlier that happened over in Syria, is, are we prepared for another apocalypse? Are we ready do we have the safeguards in place? Do we have the provisions in place that should something like that occur, how prepared are we, or will this cycle repeat itself? Thank you for allowing me to share.
Will the cycle repeat itself? That's a question. That's also a message that we can preach. Will the cycle repeat itself. Well, tonight we are looking at what effect would Black Wall Street have on today's society. That alone is a question. And I really feel impressed that we should really look at that as a question. And even in a nutshell, before we should touch on question number 1, 2, and 3, what effect would Black Wall Street have on today's society? Pastor Carmel King Long, woman of God, how say you?
Well, when you look at that area that they call Black Wall Street, you know, and I understand also from the video, they also called it Little Africa. And when we think about Wall Street, we think about the financial center of the world, you know, in New York City. The street is actually named Wall Street. Now that they're doing so much other forms of investing money, it's more online than actually going to the physical location. But we see what Wall Street is today, that it is a place that is still very successful. It's a place that anybody that is into finances is well aware of it. I can't imagine the millions of dollars that go through a 1-inch square of that location within an hour. So, and if we consider just the name alone, we know that it would have a great impact overall on African Americans and people of color within this nation, because to have access to that type of wealth would change everything for life as we know it. When you think about one of the major lacks as a person of color is being able to access wealth, being able to access money for entrepreneurs, for investments, for mortgages, for cars, for education. So it would, if you were to have Black-owned banks, and you know the way in which that was set up, that they deliberately and intentionally kept the community Black. They said that they only sold homes and sold the land to Black people. So they had intentions of pouring back into the Black communities. So therefore, we know that this would be a continuous process, and it would be so much more enlarged. And you could see that not just being in Omaha, but you can see that, I mean, in Tulsa, but you could see that there would be Black Wall Streets, you know, within every state, or without, at least within a certain area in the United States. And it would benefit in that people would be able to see themselves, you know, as African Americans. You would be able to see others successful. You would be able to have the privilege of quote unquote saying that we have families that have old money. Not just the Chase and the Rockefellers and, you know, those sorts. And you would be able to see Black philanthropists, people whose job is just to loan money and see where to loan it to. And instead of them loaning it and pushing it into the things that want to progress their sector of society, these philanthropists would put the money into things that would prosper African American and our agenda and the necessities that we have. And, you know, money speaks. Having wealth gives you a voice, whether we want to admit it or not. It speaks, and it speaks very loudly. So you would be able to have a force within politics, within education, within entertainment, within every sector of society. Our voice would be represented, and we would have a much stronger grip on the government and policies and the way money is shared and equalized within the nation, because we would be one of the persons who would be there making sure that laws are in place to protect us. And right now we don't have that. We don't have equity in finances. We don't have access to finances the way other communities do. And we just know that if that Black Wall Street would have succeeded, that as we know it, Black communities would be a lot different.
A lot different indeed. They had their own banks, own school, theaters, you name it. A woman of God, let me ask you a question. Do you think that this massacre that took place then was to erase the years of Black success?
I think so. I think it was definitely by jealousy and envy, and we see it in the Bible with so many. It's most notable with King Saul and King David, when the woman sang the song, and he became very enraged and very jealous, and was no longer satisfied with the gifts that he had, and they were no longer satisfied with the way in which they were able to be in society. Even though we were wealthy, we were limited, and they were no longer satisfied with the fact that they had power, even though we had wealth, and they wanted the little we had. They also, in their, I'm sure they saw that it was getting larger, just as I believe it was Apostle Lucian talked about the Tower of Babel, and going higher and higher, and surely we'll be able to achieve something. So I think it was intentional. I think it was planned. I think it was deliberate, and that's why they got help. They got resources. It was a planned assignment. They had the planes, and they made it so that there was no communication outside. All of those things had to be deliberate, because how do you stop people from communicating with a neighboring community and letting them know what's taking place right next door? How do you get all these planes with weapons loaded and ready to drop on a specific location within a few hours? So it had to be intentional, it had to be deliberate and planned to stop us and to just burn the whole community, destroy it all.
Bishop, I think it's also a way of sending a message to other Black communities that, look, the fear factor, if you will, this is what will happen to you, because really, have we had another Black Wall Street since then? I don't think so. So, and fear is a horrible thing, the fear of the unknown. And so I think it was a message being sent to others. Look, if you don't want this to happen to you, just stay put and just do the bare minimum. Don't try to excel or succeed, because this very well could happen to you also.
This very well could happen to you also. Well, man of God, speak on. What effect would Black Wall Street have on today's society? How say you?
Tremendous effect. Pastor King laid it out so well. I mean, access to capital, whether you're a businessman, you're a homeowner, and there's nothing like having access. She says money answered. Well, the Bible says money answered all things. And when you do have money, you have a voice. And then she said, let's not kid ourselves, whether we're pastors, bishops, congressmen, councilmen, whoever, or just a lay person, money talks. There's no if, ands, or about it. So I think it would have made a tremendous difference. And I think also it would create other communities that can lift themselves up, other communities, other Black communities, maybe other Black Wall Street communities, because, hey, here's the pattern. And if we can make it work over here, then we can make it work over there. And so you replicate yourself. And so, yeah, I think it would have a tremendous effect on our society today, especially the Black community, because what is our biggest problem? Lack of resources, lack of funding. And we are at the mercy of those who have the funding, have the resources. And as you know, we pay twice, 3 times more than anybody else. Just for what? The color of our skin? It's so wrong. But this is where we are.
Amen. Amen. And let me say this, that this gross atrocity that took place was covered up for so many years. It was not even taught in schools. But thank God you can only hide certain things for a short period of time. Okay, Apostle, man of God, how say you?
Yes, sir. I was just making a note where they said the Federal Reserve stated that Black people are 2 times more likely to be denied, to Bishop Williston's point, be denied credit than their white counterparts, regardless of income level. And the discriminatory practices, I put it in the chat there, that what created redlining. And I thought about it as Bishop Williston was sharing, and I believe Pastor Long, when it was saying how that even today, what can we do? And I thought about it. If you go back even to that video, it was the Black church that began to galvanize the people to be able to say, here's the level of faith that we can go, here's what we can do today. And they took that message to heart. Regardless to the outcome, we do see what happens when a people can come together and then have the same mind, the same aim, and we'll achieve more.
Well, it's been said that we Black folks cannot come together, but let me say this, that Black Wall Street did illustrate to us that we can come together. And can you imagine an area not even a mile long having more millionaires than the entire United States of America? Well, Kamara Reed Clark, woman of God, how say you?
So Bishop, I do agree with what everyone was saying, which is so true. One of the ways I looked at this was that in answering this question, based on the video that we saw earlier, reflecting back on, as Pastor King Long said, what Black Wall Street is known for. When we look back, especially in that video, it says we're referring to a time in which the entire state of Oklahoma had only 2 airports and 6 Black families owned 2 airplanes. Also, at the time of the riot, 600 successful businesses were lost, including 21 restaurants, 30 grocery stores, and also 2 movie theaters and a hospital. So I say that because had this prosperous Black neighborhood been our launching pad or our place of takeoff, not only would our four parents be at an advantage to compete in the business world economically and socially, but also as Blacks, we would feel the need to assimilate, meaning that we want to dress alike or look like our white counterparts in order to be accepted in certain environments. So in order for us to, even today, in order for us to get anything done, whether it be food, clothing, shelter, education, student loans or mortgages, we see we have to go through our white counterparts to get this done. And lastly, the other thing I looked at was that our children, imagine seeing this to emulate or be in an environment where they can learn from, seeing professionals in these places. This will nurture them to also become the same professionals that they see every day. Our kids will not just be rappers or gangbangers or looking for, a quick fix or quick money. But when they see these people as examples, they can become accountants. They can become business owners. If that was our launching pad, then surely our kids will have a better tomorrow and we'll have less of them in prisons. The problem of violence, crime on crime will even be less when our kids have good role models. So I think it's just a trickle-down effect if we just had that launching pad to start with.
We just had that launching pad to start with. Let me just put this general question to the panel, those of you that would like to answer before we touch on question number 1. Why is Black Wall Street important? Especially pertaining to the United States history. Why is it important?
I think it's extremely important, Bishop, because one of the theories that goes on is that Blacks are not equally as intelligent as their white counterparts. So this completely shuts that altogether down, because this land that they got, it says it was an Indian reservation. So they got land that was wasted, because we know from history that they took the Indians from their lands and they put them on the worst lands that did not have access to water, lands that did not have access to any place that would make them to be successful, land that was pretty much not good to grow crops or of little value. But these people had the vision to see that this land that they could do something with. So I think it totally debunks any type of ideology or any type of theory that says that Blacks are less intellectually inclined than other races. And also the idea that we are unable to get along. You know, that too is a myth. It has no proof other than people's words. And when you think about slavery, you know, they tried to enslave Indians, they tried to enslave Irish, they tried to enslave so many people, but it didn't work. Those people died. They would rather commit suicide than go through slavery. And it required a great deal of unity for the slaves to be able to survive. So, you know, these quote unquote theories, they don't have any basis other than words. And I think that this here just proves us to be superior, for sure.
Amen to that. Anyone else would like to rebuttal? Well, it's been said that Christ is a root out of a dry ground. So no matter how something is dried, ladies and gentlemen, and it looks as if it can't work, you put the right person there. You put the right person there, and in no time at all, it will become like the seasons of Lebanon. Okay, let's jump on to question number one. It took us 40 minutes to go through the prelims. Okay, question number one. What are some of the lessons that we can learn from Black Wall Street experience? The lessons that we can learn. And let me go over to Kamara Reed Clark, woman of God. How say you?
So, Bishop, one of the things we note with the whole experience is that, as we've seen before with the video and what my other counterparts indicated, that because of segregation laws, this meant that the Blacks could not shop in the white areas. So here they created this own community. They had a sense of belonging. They created what was theirs. And as a result, we see that Black entrepreneurship flourished in Greenwood. So we recognize for Black Wall Street, the core of their success was built on the fact that the trades and the businesses thrived because of support. The local supported their own. So they didn't have Amazon Prime, next day delivery. They didn't have FedEx or UPS. You know, they just thought of it as a community of their own. To me, they had the power of unity to build. It was a sense of belonging, a sense of brand loyalty, as you would say. So this is mine. I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to invest in it because guess what? I can't go anywhere else to do it. So I'm going to do it because it's mine. So here they invested in it and protected it. Then we look at the other spectrum of it now, wherein the Black Wall Street taught us what envy can do, what somebody, where you say they are disruptive, they want to disrupt or annihilate a whole generational wealth that was being created. So again, we look at all these facets to it, and we learn of how we can further educate our counterparts, how we can further, you know, reverberate the things that we want to see, emulate the things that we want to see in our community. So the saying that you can try to keep a Black man down, but you can't do it forever. So with us, we are so versatile, where no matter what happens to us, we're going to rise above it. We're going to take up the mantle and run with it again, because that's how we know it. We came through slavery, we beat the odds, and look at us. Some of us are business owners, we are educators, we are homeowners, we have businesses beyond the shadow of a doubt. We take little and we work it into much. So from their experience, we ourselves have learned that we can do anything once we have unity, and we can put things together and make it even better for our next generation to come.
We can do anything once we have unity. Put it together, especially for the next generation, which is to come. What are some of the lessons we can learn from the Black Wall Street experience? Apostle Talbot, man of God, how say you?
Yes, thank you so much for that. And I appreciate what Pastor Kamara Clark stated. First thing is we need that mindset, because we can allow that experience to grip us and paralyze us from forging ahead. It could be internally, I could do this, but then fear will say, you brought this out, Bishop Scott. Remember, I think of Bishop Walston, remember what happened to those that did try to succeed and did succeed. Do you want a repeat? But I think what I keep calling Dr. Clark, what she stated was, we have to like dig within, come together, and we can make this thing happen. I'm getting excited because I know the possibilities of what can happen when we all get like-minded people together. Thank you, sir.
Can you just imagine that the courts couldn't help us at that time? The money that we should have gotten from insurance companies, because there was not too many Black folks in certain positions. Now, this tells me that it's important that we find ourselves in certain positions, because at that time, now, hear me, if there were Black judges, people that were in charge of insurance companies, we got nothing for losing everything. So this means now that we have to start from scratch. That's why it's important for us to vote, and it's important for us to put our color in a position that they can work on our behalf. That, I think, is very, very much important. These poor people had to start from scratch. And what hurts me is that all of this, it was concealed for like 70 years. Does it hurt? Yes, it does hurt. The question is, what are some of the lessons that we can learn from Black Wall Street? Bishop Dr. Neville Williston, man of God, how say you?
Yes, Bishop, definitely concur with the apostle and with Pastor Clark. I mean, just to piggyback on the apostle, he mentioned the mindset. And I think it really starts there. And I like what he said. He's excited about the possibilities. And I think if we all have that mindset that we can be excited about the possibilities, whatever we are putting our hands or feet to, I think that's a good place to start. So I would definitely say understanding, one of the lessons that we can learn, understanding the power of our dollars. Understanding the power of our dollars. I was making a few notes earlier. Bishop, I'm pretty sure you know this. Black people spend on average $2 billion a year on Air Jordans. Sneakers. Black people spend $4 billion a year on liquor. Liquor. $1 billion on fast foods. Now, please, women, don't send me no nasty emails. I'm just stating the facts. Black women spend $20 billion a year on hair care products. No disrespect, ladies. We want you to look good. But my question is, who controls all these industries? Not us. We don't control the hair care industry. We don't control the liquor industry. And not that I'm, advocating for alcohol. And then we talk about the circulation of the Black dollar, or the circulation of the dollar in any community.
Yes.
Here it is. According to the University of Georgia study, money circulates one time within the African-American community, one time, compared to 6 times in the Latino community, 9 times in the Asian community, and unlimited amount of times within the white community. So studies have shown that a dollar circulates 6 hours in the Black community. Bishop, when we get our paycheck, it only stays in our neighborhood 6 hours. And listen, I'll be first to say I'm guilty of that, because unless I'm getting a beef patty or cocoa bread or oxtail or some jerk something. So Bishop, it gets us to think, and that's what I like about this program. We don't just want to spit out facts and give facts, if you will. How can we change it? How can I change that? We just mentioned that in our community, our dollars only stay there for 6 hours. That is sad in the Black community. 20 days in the Jewish community, 30 days in the Asian community. Blacks have an estimated 1.3 trillion gross national income, but only 2% of that stays in the Black community. It is, you can agree with me on this, L'Oreal owns one of the largest Black beauty brands in the world. They not one of us. What it says is that they have demonstrated that white-owned businesses can profit exclusively from Black buyers. What can we learn from Wall Street, from the Black Wall Street? Their togetherness,
Yes.
their sense of coming together, ownership. I mean, here's another fact. 80% of revenues of white-owned Hennessy and Cognac comes from Black consumers. But the company has no Black distributors or suppliers. They don't even advertise in Black-owned media. Bishop, will we ever get it? I like the apostles' approach. It's possible. The possibilities are great. They're there. But it starts with the mindset. Again, we don't want to just spit out facts. We have a large audience on this platform. We just don't want to kick off. And we're not trying to be discriminate against anybody. But you know, in the Jewish community, they're first with their own. In the Asian community, they're first with their own. It's the Italian and everybody else. It's about time for we to say, look, we're going to be first with our own. That's how Wall Street, the Black Wall Street, was successful. It can happen again, but we have to change our mindset. Will we ever get it? I don't know, Bishop, but I hope we will, because it's very possible. I like the apostles' approach. It's very possible.
Amen to that. Let me put something to you. Say, for instance, you have a Black-owned grocery store, and they are serving the community. And then all of a sudden, an Asian grocery store opens up next door to them. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? I put that to you.
I think the nature of our people, and again, it goes back to mindset, they would prefer to go to the Asian store because they feel they get a better deal. And here's what's crazy, Bishop. I've had friends who have businesses and Black businesses, and you know, every so often someone will come and say, "Give me a deal, man. Come on, you know, we cool." But we never go to the white man and say, "Give me a deal." If it's $50, we paying 50. In the Black business, if it's 50, we want to pay 45, or we want 20% off. Bro, I'm here, and this is business. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, but there's a secret that the Asians know that we don't know. They know that if they move into our neighborhood, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. Lastly, Bishop, it is said, if you want to know who your friends are, start a business. Start a business. Start a business. If you want to know who your true friends are, start a business. You'll see.
Bishop Neville Woodiston, I don't know what you've been drinking, man, but give me some of that.
Just water, Bishop, just water.
Coconut water, but it's not the real thing, man. 2 weeks ago, you were enjoying the real thing. Okay.
That's for sure.
Let's put that same question to our Kumara Clark, please. With your woman of God, how say you?
So, Bishop, in terms of how do we encourage our Black community to support Black businesses? So I believe, like right now, we have as leaders, we have this platform and we have a following, you know, we have influence. So one of the things we can do is to encourage Black businesses from the platform that we stand on, meaning that we are intentional in where we shop and how we shop. We write reviews, you know, about these Black businesses, do recommendation. So based on the platform, we can give these recommendations, whether in person or on social media. We have this following that we can, you know, take advantage of. I want to play devil's advocate in the sense of what Bishop Williston said, wherein oftentimes for a fact, when I'm shopping, I'm looking for a good deal. And sometimes I find in my Black community, the prices are greater than maybe shopping on Amazon. So then I'm torn as to how to support, or, you know, which one to support. And I'm always looking for a better deal. So I think I have to have, again, the sense of loyalty, the sense of, you know, brand loyalty, community loyalty, and knowing that I'm going to support my own. And hopefully with more support, prices can be driven down. Because if everybody have that same mindset, then prices will look similar to what I'm going outside to buy.
Okay, I hear you, woman of God. Now, please forgive me, okay, because I really meant to ask Pastor Carmel King Long about verse, well, number 1. What are some of the lessons that we can learn from the Black Wall Street experience? Okay, Kamara, I'll come back to you. Okay, please, woman of God, would you?
Sure. You know, everything that everyone said was pretty much, there's not much more left to say other than I agree with what everyone else has presented. The one thing I would say, as Bishop Wilson was saying, to make it practical, you know, we need to speak what we are and not just speak for speaking's sake. And I see our way to get that done is through education. Because one thing we noted about the Black Wall Street is that they were serious about education. They had the schools for the children, and they made sure that they dressed a certain way, presented themselves a certain way, which showed us that they had a great expectation for them. And I'm sure that they taught them through example and I'm sure intentional teaching as well on finances. And it's something that we really don't teach. It's something that we take for granted that people understand. And I can say that of my own self that I too was ignorant about finances until I really got dropped in it. And that's why you'll see that many of people of color, they end up catching up at a later age because they're really not taught to open accounts, what accounts are, what credit is, the significance of it, and even by example, you know, what is the importance of having financial integrity, paying your bills on time, just doing things and being loyal to other Black people. I think it's something like, I know when I was growing up in my household, it was something that was mentioned often. I don't see that too much anymore, where people talk about the necessity for Black people to stand together, to be loyal to one another, to be committed to one another, to have that in the back of your mind that you need to support, you know, others that are similar or look like you. And I think that there would speak volumes. When you look at large companies like Amazon and Walmart and, you know, Targets, it's very hard to compete because what they're paying per price for that product is going to be different than someone who's buying 100 to someone who's buying 1,000,000 of the same thing. So, but you have to be deliberate to know that I can afford to pay $1 more if it's going to help me in the long run. It's going to help my future generation. It may not help me today, but down the line, it's going to help me. And that just brings me, you know, to the Bible where it says what? To write the vision and make it plain, even though it tarries, wait for it. So it requires some sort of patience on our part. And, you know, we live in a society where everybody wants something right now. And I don't want to wait. But we have to know that we have to put in. It says that there is a great educational gap that they've been trying to fix for God knows how long. And I don't believe they're trying to fix it because I believe they can fix it and they know exactly what to do. And it's the same thing. There's a large wealth gap. It is said, I think the last one was taken in 2016, that the average white family, it has 10 times the income of the average Black family overall. And this is over, you know, over a lifetime. So that's a great difference. I mean, to know that you're 10 times less financially stable than someone else that lives right next door to you. That is atrocious in this day and age for such a statistic to be continuous. And instead of it getting lesser, it remains about the same or increases. So we have to deliberately, you know, create unity, as everyone was saying. There's no other way, really. There's no other way to create this other than to unite together and teach our children and one another the importance of our money, the importance of supporting one another. When you think about even the simple bus boycotts that Rosa Parks started, they thought nothing of it at first. But then when the government realized that, wow, you know, we can't continue to equip buses put gas in buses, maintain buses if we don't have Black customers. So our money goes a lot longer than we think. And we just have to be willing to put the sacrifice today, knowing that it's going to benefit society in the long run. As Bishop Williston said, we have to be willing to take action.
Woman of God, although Bishop Williston had mentioned this, let me ask you a similar question. If Black Wall Street had continued, my God, until now, where do you see us, Black folks?
I see us in a different sector of society. I definitely don't see us to be impoverished as we are. I think we would definitely be a force to contend with in the overall American society, because we would have had access to wealth, and we would have been able to have homes and have credits and been able to develop ideas. You know, when you look at these large companies, Nike and L'Oreal and all these other companies, they have a lot of people of color who are in the creative departments, but we are not the one who has the license or trademark, but we're the one creating the product that is eventually licensed or trademarked. But if we had the ability, the startup money, then we would be able to do these things ourselves, but it's because there is no backing. And even though someone may have the gift or the talent, eventually they end up selling what they have because they need to survive to someone else. So I think if Wall Street had continued, we would definitely be in a different place, I would not, I don't know if I could say we would be equal at equal standing and equal footing, but I do believe financially we would not be 10 times less than the whites. I think it would be definitely more fair.
I think so too. Anyone else like to rebuttal?
Bishop, I think that's been their problem all along, the fear of us being equal to them. Whether it's driving the same cars, living in the same neighborhood, you know, it's just that fear. So then here you go, Black Wall Street, let's destroy that. It's that fear, because remember, we're never supposed to be equal to them. We're never supposed to live in the same neighborhoods. Our kids and their kids are not supposed to go to the same schools. So when we're empowered, and we can only be empowered by wealth. So when we're empowered and we have the wealth, the sky is the limit. And that's their fear. It's a fear factor.
Their fear. Anyone else like to come in on that? Well, let me ask this question then. Okay, it's somewhat related. What impact did Wall Street crash have on America? What impact do you think the Wall Street crash had on America? Because remember now that they had more millionaires in that small area than the entire United States of America. Ooh.
The Black Wall Street? The Black Wall Street?
Wall Street, sir. Wow. What impact?
Well, if I may, Mr. Scott, when you preface the question with what impact would Wall Street have, my mind left the Black Wall Street and came to the Wall Street when the Great Depression hit. It showed you there how they got a glimpse of what happened in the Black Wall Street with the, now as Pastor Lonk had alluded to, the Wall Street of the what we know today. Many jumped out buildings, many took their own lives, because why? They couldn't handle the crash. And then I thought about this, and to your other question, if I may just tie it together here, is what if Black Wall Street would have continued today, where would we be? We would have somebody else stand alongside Tyler Perry. We would also have some others. Matter of fact, we would own this platform that we're on. Had Black Wall Street continue. And I conclude right there, sir.
I like you, man of God. I like you, man of God. Okay, I like that. Well, not just that, but understand this, that the gross national product dropped 50% when Black Wall Street went down. Not just that, but car production dropped 80% when Black Wall Street went down. Not just that, but building construction dropped 92% when Black Wall Street, my God, went down. And let me say this, that no matter what, we are indeed a force to be reckoned with. Yes, sir, we are indeed a force to be reckoned with. Time is going. We only have approximately 27 minutes left. Let's jump on to question number 2 for one and all. And I do know that daughter Kamara Clark did make mention of certain things. Well, woman of God, I'm going to ask you just to please repeat what you said pertaining to question number 2. How can we encourage the Black community to support Black businesses? Because, hear me, I say this from my heart. Most of us on the panel, we know King's Plaza. And when you go to King's Plaza, out of every 10 people, 8 are Black. And if we were to boycott King's Plaza for 1 week, they would go under. I know that the apostle may not know King's Plaza, but it's a big shopping area that's in Brooklyn. Man of God, if we Black folks were to boycott it for 1 week, they would go under. Just as how the bus company had to beg the Black folks to come back on the bus and so forth. Okay, so the question is, how can we encourage the Black community to support Black businesses? Daughter, what say you?
So Bishop, as it's so important to have this community in which we live and thrive. And as I mentioned, as leaders, we have platforms in which we can really speak from and have followers who we can influence to basically say, hey, here's what I'm supporting. And if we have followers, they likewise can also, take a step in our direction where we promote our businesses or Black businesses so into what we want to see our future look like. Because I do believe what we're sowing into now, we're creating our generation to do likewise. And that's the thing about the next, creating for the next. We're not just living for ourselves, but we are building up the next. As our Pastor King Long said, indicated, growing up, there was a sense of, teaching about supporting Black businesses. One of the things I'm teaching my kids is to start saving their money and, the value of the dollar, not just wasting it or leaving it in their uniforms and I'm taking it at the end of the day, but for them to really know the value of the dollar. So when we start teaching, even from an early age, the value of the dollar and the value of investing in ourselves, then I believe we have something that we can build on. So the way we can influence is by, writing and sharing reviews about Black community, Black owned businesses. We can recommend them in person or on social media. And by so doing, we are now building a relationship. We're taking responsibility to invest in our community and build ties to our community. Because when we know it's ours, we're going to take care of it. And I believe that's something so important as a community, a Black community, to do.
Daughter, how important is it to be intentional about shopping at Black-owned businesses? How important is that?
Bishop, you have to be intentional. Like, for example, like I indicated, there's so many competitors out there who can offer, even lower prices that our Black-owned businesses offer. And to be intentional means that you're going to definitely say, hey, I'd rather invest in my community than spend it elsewhere because I'm building up my own. And if we have that mindset, we have to come together, because if we all come together with that mindset, then definitely, we can invest and prices will be lowered, because that in fact is what, the ultimate goal should be, to see prices lowered in our community so that we don't go outside and shop and build up other businesses, but we're building up our own.
Okay, sounds good indeed, women of God. Question number 2. How can we encourage the Black community to support Black businesses? Bishop Williston.
Yes, Bishop, very good question. And I would definitely relate to something that Pastor Clark said earlier. And I don't know if it's possible, but it's worth having a conversation. She said the platform that we as pastors have, a very powerful platform. So case in point, many years ago, everybody knows Jamal Bryant, New Birth Missionary Baptist Church. One particular Easter, he said to all his members, 5,000 plus, everybody come in with t-shirts and jeans. Easter Sunday? That's against the law. What was he saying? Nobody go out and spend money. Because Bishop, you know how we do on Easter Sunday. You know how we do. We going to town. I mean, Black folks. And he said, everybody come in with t-shirt and jeans. In other words, don't go out and spend a dime. Can you imagine 5,000 plus people, how much money they would have saved and what they could have given that money to, what cause they could give it to? So I say, yeah, as pastors and leaders, we have a platform that we could use to further the case as such. Yeah, but I think it also starts with the Black businesses. Pastor Clark says it's hard to compete because of, prices and so forth and so on. But I think Black businesses have to raise their standards. They have to raise their standards. They have to start to operate with excellence, professionalism, and courtesy. I've been to many Black businesses and primarily restaurants, and it's like, whenever they get to you, they get to you. And it's like, you're doing them a favor by walking in the door. Yes, you might be busy and there may be one person waiting, but at least recognize me. Sir, I'll be with you in just a moment. When I go to the white businesses, that's what I hear all the time. Sir, I'll be with you in just a moment. Sir, I'll be with you in just a moment. Not in some of our Black businesses. It's kind of like, what do you want? It's like, don't you see I'm busy? And don't let them be on their phone. And I'm like, can I just get something to eat? I don't want no McDonald's today. I want oxtail. I want, and it's kind of like, so Black businesses have to start operating with a sense of excellence, professionalism, because guess what, Bishop, I can take my money someplace else and be treated right, but I prefer to take it to my community. The least you can do is be courteous.
The least you can do is to be courteous, a man of God, and as long as they have the oxtail there, that's the main thing now. Correct? Amen, amen. Well said indeed. Okay, and I've noticed that quite a number of people are calling our sister Kamara Law pastor. Maybe you're prophesying, who knows?
Listen, let's endorse it. Amen.
Listen, anything is possible. Okay, Pastor Carmel King Long, woman of God, how say you? How say you?
Well, I think before we can even begin to encourage Black community to support Black businesses, we need to build Black community. Because the truth be told, we don't really have oneness in the Black communities, in the neighborhoods, in the places. We gather together when something goes wrong, but we need to gather together just when things are going right. We need to really build back community within Black neighborhoods, with even amongst family, amongst within the schools. If you start with the schools, start with the children, then you would continue on, because we lack community, we lack oneness in that area. We don't know our neighbors, we don't know who lives, we don't know what's going on. We tend to just stay in our little corner and mind our own, but we have to realize that we are a target and we want to progress. We have a common source of division in this United States. And because we are seen as an underclass, we have to really stand together in order to be able to get out of that stigma. And we see it with the Hispanics. I mean, they band together. I see it all the time. They could be from two different communities, but they start talking to each other in Spanish, helping each other to figure out what to do, how to do it, where the resources are, where should I go, you know, who's the child care provider, what can I do in this neighborhood, what's a good place, because they have that common language and they bond together. And we too should look to one another to help one another. And then after we get together as a community, I think it would just logically move on to, we want to support each other in a financial way as well. But first we have to go to the root of where it is broken, because I believe there are just a lot of stigmatisms between Blacks, because I will hear people say that they're deliberately leaving their neighborhood to go and shop in another neighborhood because they feel that it has a better product. They feel the area is going to be, their shopping experience is going to be more pleasant. They believe that it's just more peaceful and that it's better to be around others than people like themselves. You know, even as parents, do we tend to push our children to go to historically Black colleges and universities or not? You know, it's questions we have to think of ourselves, and we need to figure out, why do we do the things we do? You know, I can honestly say that I have pushed for that with my daughter, but she didn't want to do it. But little things like that make a big difference. If we're not supporting our own, then there's no way we can encourage somebody else to support our own. So we have to do what we want to be seen. As the famous saying goes, be the change that you want to see. But I definitely believe in what Apostle Talbot said, that it's possible. But we just have to make a deliberate change. We can't continue to do the things that we're doing and see the necessity for it, see the need for it, see that, you know what, just because I'm not a business owner does not mean that we do not need money in the Black community. Just because I'm not going to own a bank does not mean we don't need a Black person to own a bank or financial, have great financial representation within the nation. And if we all gather together to push those in front of us, knowing that it may not never personally affect us. So it has to be some sort of selfless actions on our parts. And that's something that you just have to desire to do and persevere and get it done.
You just have to desire to do and persevere to get it done. One of the things that I've always wanted to do, and I think I mentioned this to a few people on the program sometimes last year, is to start my own bank. Start my own bank. Why not? I don't see why the church could not have its own bank. And so on. Other churches have done it. Other communities have done it. Why can't we get together and do the same thing? Well, the question is, how can we encourage the Black community to support Black business? Apostle, I'm sure that you do have the answer, sir. How say you?
Well, sir, if you didn't text me the response, I may not, but the way we could do this is really take what we've heard tonight, put it together, and use this as ingredients to begin, and somebody put it here, be the change that we want to see. Pastor Clark and also Pastor Long, really everybody brought this out. We have the platform where we can say something and somebody's going to give an amen. But we got to be willing to demonstrate it from our positions as leaders in the community, that we demonstrate what we're saying to them. I think it was years ago, they said, I'd rather see a sermon than hear a sermon any day. So that's what we have to do. Let's give them the plan. Let's give them the strategy, and let's be the seed into what we want to see in our future.
Let's be the seed in what we want to see in our future. Man of God, I don't like it. I love it. Thank you very much. Let me ask a general question. It's not a trick question, but who named this area Black Wall Street? Do you know? In your research, did you come across it?
Yes, Booker T. Washington.
Okay. Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street. Now, why was the area in Greenwood called Black Wall Street? Why was it called Black Wall Street?
And you know, what was significant when I realized that it was Booker T. Washington, just from watching the information presented that named it, I thought that was significant because, you know, his philosophy was that Blacks should stay to agriculture and teach their own and really not really get involved in finances and politics and that sort. So I thought it was really just so profound that he gave it that name just to show the great deal of wealth that was there, because the reason that Wall Street is named Wall Street is because the amount of capital that flows through that area. And it is because of the amount of capital that flows through that community. As they said, within that community, they had so many millionaires. And that was in 1921. And so many people that were wealthy, the upper class, and so many people that owned over were worth over $100,000. So they were named Black Wall Street because of the great amount of wealth that was in that dense area. So that's the name.
Gotcha. Sounds good indeed. Anyone else like to say something pertaining to that before we touch on question number 3? Okay, we have only 11 minutes left. And one of the things I know, when you give a microphone to a preacher, okay, should churches have a primary Black congregation encourage more entrepreneurship and deeper understanding of the importance of ownership? Now, let me put that question first of all to Pastor Kamara Reed Clark.
Bishop, I think you're getting away with this now.
Everyone else is saying it. I might as well just say it also.
I'm gonna have to report you to my bishop. So, Bishop, to your question, it's a resounding yes. I do believe in our leadership in our congregation to teach entrepreneurship and a better understanding or deeper understanding of the importance of ownership. And I believe as churches, they hold this platform where you have the community coming in. So what better place to address the man as a whole? What better place to look at the man and for his betterment or improvement spiritually, economically, mentally? You can deal with him on all these levels. So we're not just looking at the spiritual growth of a man, but we're taking him as a whole, because a healthy family brings a healthy church. And we're thinking about a healthy family. We're thinking about them being well off, not say well off, but really sufficient financially. They're able to take care of themselves. Because if a man is worried about a bread, how to feed his family, definitely you're not going to get him to be spiritually adept to what you're teaching him and what he's learning. So I do believe this is a great platform from which you can teach a man as a whole. And as Bishop Wilson mentioned earlier, when we look at, unfortunately, only $1 stays in the Black community for only 6 hours versus in the Asian community stays for 28 days. So we see Black unemployment stays 4 times higher than for whites. And the reason for both Black unemployment and the absence of Black economic revolution is because the lack of Black businesses. But if we can teach a man how to fish, if we can teach a man generational wealth, if we can teach them on the basis that this is something that can trickle down, of course, this is something that they can build on. And we can see they can then eventually realize the importance of ownership. Having something of their own is so important. You're going to teach him how to fish. You're not going to give him, but you can teach him, and then he launches off on his own launching pad. And that's the greatest thing you can ever give somebody, when you can teach them generational wealth and to own something.
Teach them generational health and to
Well,
own. Okay, let's put that same question to the apostle. Man of God, how say you?
Yes, I tell you, this is a hot button. You're gonna have to thank Bishop Walkerston for this here. But I looked at the model that Jesus had. If you look at him, most people say that he had the disciples around him and the apostles around him. But when you take it in a deeper dive, he really had marketplace leaders that he had around him. So, and he taught more on finances than he did healing. And to Dr. Clark's point, that if a man has the wealth that they really need, then their health would be much better, because stress can really impact a person's health more than not they're having more finances. And my last point on that is, if we're going to teach this, we got to be willing to have tough skin, because like with Martin Luther King, everybody is not going to say freedom ring. With that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Amen to that. All right. Thank you, man of God. Listen, man, I like you. I like you. Question, where are you from? Connecticut? Are you living in Connecticut?
No, I'm in New Jersey.
New Jersey. Okay. God bless you, man of God. Okay. Same question to Pastor Carmel King Long. Woman of God, how say you?
I would say yes, definitely yes. We as a church, I think we have a responsibility to empower people and encourage people to have ownership. And especially as we come out of COVID, we see that the benefit went out to those who own something. If you own something, what you kept was increased. You were able to receive a lot more. Those people who had jobs, they got that unemployment. If you didn't have a job, you got nothing. So, and if you had a home, you got your, you got all sorts of plans to stay current on your mortgage, to get rebate on your taxes. If you were renting, it wasn't much for you. So we see that the nation, because it's a capitalist nation, it is made for the wealthy. It is made for those who have ownership. So we too have to help people to fulfill that promise that they were given, to have life and have it abundantly. And definitely without a home, someone can, as those of us who have the privilege, I don't even know if I want to say privilege anymore, of living in this wonderful city called New York, we see what's going on with rent. And it is in the hands of the owners. They have the ability to increase your rent as they see fit. So if you don't own something, then you really are gullible to whatever is going on in the society. And at any time you can be displaced. So it is so very important that we teach and empower people. And then I keep on going back to Bishop Wellison, because it's just so true that we got to do something. We can't just talk about it. So we really have to, we see that I've heard this, and I believe it's true as well, that within the Jewish communities, that they help one another to buy homes. That when it's your turn to buy a home, we all help with the down payment, and then it's your own turn, and then we all help, and then it's your turn. And you keep on going in that fashion. And I see it too with my co-workers as well, that their families come in together. They think it's very important that when you get married and live the home, you have a home, and the family will come together and help with that younger family who is buying and purchasing a home. So we need to really dip in our pocket, as Apostle Talbert said. Everyone is not going to buy into that dream, but there'll be more of us that are with it than against us. And we can't worry about those who are not going to do it, but work with those who are willing. And even if it's only the 60% that are willing, work with that 60%. And then some people, you just got to pull them up when they see the result, then they'll be willing. So we just gotta do what we gotta do.
Amen.
And
We got to do what we got to do. Okay, same question, Bishop Williston.
Yes, Bishop, totally agree with all my counterparts. I'll just make it real quick. Ownership, whether it's owning your own business, especially your own home. Of course, home ownership is one of the key ways of building wealth. And as leaders and as pastors, I think it's incumbent on us that we stress that so very much. Apostle definitely said it right. When you have that, that stress factor is not as great as it is. I mean, you don't have to pray for healing and for deliverance. If the money's flowing, it's a good place to be, at all. Whether you're a pastor, you're a lay person, once the money's flowing, but ownership is key. Three of my children that are married, I press for them to own their homes, and they have done that because that's a key way to build wealth. And yes, definitely it should.
Amen. Listen, we want to thank God tonight for this discussion that we're having. And as Bishop Williston always says, at least we're having the conversation. So much has been said. So much, my God, has trickled in. What should we take away from this conversation tonight? Pastor Carmel Kinglong.
wealth builds wealth.
Well, builds wealth. I like it. Thank you much. Bishop Williston.
As Black people, they can hold us down, but never count us out.
I can tell that you all are preachers. I can tell that. Apostle Talbot, what should we take away from tonight's conversation?
We're going to be held accountable for what we heard this evening.
Well.
Okay, and let me ask, daughter, what should we take away from tonight's conversation?
So Bishop, though time has passed and the memory of Black Wall Street is fading or has faded in so many minds, I think it's important as a community for us to be intentional, to cooperate, coordinate, collaborate, and turn our communities into thriving communities.
Well said indeed, Pastor. Well said indeed. Okay. Well, listen, I'm Bishop Scott saying thank you very much for weighing in tonight on the Bishop's Corner. Bishop Williston, thank you very much, man of God. Pastor Carmel Kinglong, thank you very much. Apostle Talbot, thank you very much. And our own Kamara Reed Clark, woman of God, certainly a pleasure. See you next week, same time on the Bishop's Corner. Bye-bye now.